So let me give you a warm welcome for joining this program. The first module is innovation strategy. So welcome on board. Today we will all begin. So my name is Diana. You probably know already. I'm executive director of BMI. And I would like also to greet my team members. So it's Jurgita. She will be a coordinator. So if you have any issues, please feel free to contact her. So she will help you in all the organizational aspects which might occur on this journey. I know that some of you would not able to connect to the Teams platform successfully from the first start. So drop us a message and we will solve that issue. So feel free to call to Jurgita or write to me and we will solve the issue to connect you to the platform. As well, I would like to introduce Renata. She is also a part of EXET team and she will be assisting you as well in order to make everything smooth during this study journey. So today we are 41 students joining this module. And I would like to launch a small poll just to get to know each other. Since we already introduced the organizational team, I would like to also you introduce yourself. Could you answer those two small questions? How many years of full-time management experience do you have so far? And what sector do you represent? So we have little overview of the group. I can see a lot of people actively marking the answers. We are halfway through, a bit more. So still waiting for others to drop the answers. And we're still missing a couple of answers. If anybody would like to drop, feel free to do it right now. I'm counting till 5 and then we'll see the results. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So as we can see, the majority of the participants has quite a lot of years of experience in management. It's more than half of the participants and representing sectors, you can see that the majority are from manufacturing and finance. However, we have representatives from IT, telecommunications, services, retail, transport, construction, and energy. And 5 people are from other sectors as well, which are not listed in here. So I hope it will be a nice intro for you to have a feeling of the group. And right now I'd like to introduce Carlos Osorio. It's a professor and he is teaching at BMI. Carlos Osorio is a founder of many tools he will share with you during this program. So stay tuned. He has a lot of good words to say to you. So Carlos, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Let's, oh, you didn't share the results with them.
I did. No, it was not visible.
Is it visible now?
It was visible
yes,
before.
yes, it was.
Oh, okay, well, it was weird. Okay, so it was my bad. I'm sorry, Diana. So, guys, very nice to see you again. For those of you who we already have been members of or have been my students in previous courses. And nice to meet you for those of you whose first time we see each other. I'm just to give you a little bit of background, I'm an engineer by training, industrial. I did a master's in public policy in Harvard in science and technology policy, and then a master's in a PhD in engineering at MIT. And then since 2001, been working on the convergence of innovation and digital transformation. I want to welcome to this program as well. I happen to be the program director. And one of the, I'm going to start sharing my screen just to show you a little bit and talk a little bit briefly about the program first. For those of you who are going to be running or joining us through the whole program, give me 1 second here. And for those of you who will, oops, it seems like there is something weird with the technology which is not helping us today.
There are sometimes those days.
Sorry?
There are sometimes those days, so maybe it's one of them.
Oh, yeah. Let's hope this is not one of them.
Just a little warm up before we begin.
Yeah, now it's working. So guys, I'm gonna make myself now we are okay. And why I want to be much smaller, just to show you this. So some of you, right, are joining us just for this part of the program, which is basically the course that we are going now, the innovation strategy. Now, you know that after this program, you're going to meet with Joe Pepper for digital transformation and future leadership with Ad. Ad is from Switzerland. And Joe is an English working in many parts of the world as well. Very nice guy. And some of you who's going to go with the whole program, also, I'm going to work on this, on a digital transformation project. So in order not to bother everyone with this, if you want, we can talk a little bit later about the project. If you can stay for 5 minutes or 10 afterwards, we can do it. Or if we have time, we can go and talk a little bit more in detail. But the idea of the project is that you put into practice the tools and methods and frameworks that you're going to get from the 3 courses. And the idea will be that we will be doing this step by step. I will providing you with a lot of different methods and tools, and we'll give you a set of an outline for a digital transformation project. And the idea will be that we will be meeting between each module to help you advance the development of your project as we move along. So the rationale behind this, and these are kind of the rules of engagement for our program, right? It's the following. At least in this course, on the innovation course, we're gonna be moving through all these 5 modules, if you will. And the different things, here's a typo, it's 5, 6, and the different things for the 6 lessons. First, and today, we're gonna talk about what is innovation, what are the types of innovation, what are the impacts, and how that tells us something about the strategy and how should we approach this thing of innovation and why innovation is in some way related to digital transformation. Then we're going to talk about managing under uncertainty and complexity, which is daily bread on innovation, right? And then that's going to first module. Second module is this. We're going to talk about the determinants of innovation performance at the strategic, innovation, and people process, so levels, and understand this as 3 stages of the same thing, like the Holy Trinity, we call it, right? And then we're going to start working on how you could refine your organization, building flexibility and intangible assets, then move into how do you draft an innovation strategy and what are the components of it, and then connect that with the things you're going to see afterwards with Ad and Joe. Now, things I always build my courses around 4 things. Knowledge that you can get right from reading, from discussing, from argumenting among and working in teams. Second, frameworks that will give you to guide more easier and make more easy your decision-making process. And then we're gonna have some methods and tools that we're gonna be applying for the project and in class. And these things we call the debugging rules, which are like tips. And through the course, you will see different debugging rules. And at the end, you will have like a list of do's and don'ts that you can print, post on your wall. I don't know, some of you that already have been my students, I don't know what kind of use have you made out of them. And then you can talk to your classmates here and see how good they are. And that the idea is that they help us to make easy our decision-making process. Now, the other thing, and I'm gonna get smaller here again, has to do with the type of teaching or the type of classes that we will have are kind of different than many other, I don't know, business environment approaches or classes you already have in the past. Most teaching is at the top here. Now, people here, guys talking, if you hear some steps, we have like 7 cats here. So they might be running and making fuzzy noises. I'm sorry. So we will be working on this area here, basically, analyzing the red one or the orange one. The idea here will be that we won't be discussing much of the readings in the class. The idea will be much to, or I won't be lecturing much, except for today maybe. But the whole idea will be much one in which we put all these methods and tools for practice. And we reflect on your problems and your experience and trying to use it in order to make them more understandable and easier to deal with, right? So the whole idea here will be to generate an environment in which we can participate, we can use methods and tools into addressing either cases that already are in the readings or your own issues, which is something about the rules of engagement that we always say in terms that even though this is being recorded, this is being recorded for you, right? For your own learning purpose. And in order to make this a safe environment for everyone to speak about the problems of their company, let's keep this record just for ourselves. Okay? So in this way, everyone, if one of you, as we have already done in the past, wants to put up an issue that they are having with a company, you can have a team or basically a peer group of 40 other people who can help you reflect on that. But in order to that to happen, we have to keep these recordings for ourselves. Now, we have different teams, guys. Well, given that it was supposed to be moving, so there's nothing personal with team number 1, right? Just given that we are using this background, it doesn't allow for, Zoom doesn't allow for dynamic slide sharing. We are dividing you into 6 teams. So if you can find team number 1, Jolanta, Dainius, Simonas, Egirius. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, and if so, please teach me how to do it. Gidrius, Ricardos, Andrius. And then if you can see here, team number 2, Osra, Mark, Dinas, Neras, Rimantas, Tautas, and Robertas. Team number 3 is Greta, Gedas, Gintautas, Silvinas, another one, right? Nerijus, Vitautas, and Osvaldas. Then we move them number 4, Ruta, Carlos, nice. Linas, Maciej, Ritis, Sarunas, and Thomas. Team number 5, Joanna, Andrius, Maurius, Raimundas, Vitautas, Margus, and Hirijus. And team number 6, we have Toma, Martinez, Edvinas, Gidrius, Gediminas, and Modestas. Is there anyone without a group? Everyone is within a group. If some of you remember that we asked you to answer a poll or some test with very weird questions. No worries, we don't get answers to those questions. There is a reason for those questions, though. We don't get, you only get the final score. One thing about innovation teams, and some of you who have been my students know this, is that diversity here is not something that is good because it's politically correct, but it's good because it's a good business. It allows for many different problems that we face, teams face on innovation. And there's a saying that we will talk about, is that diverse teams always beat lone geniuses. And the reason for teaming you up in this way, we will disclose everything at one point, is that we team you up based on a methodology that mixes the test and some different variables of diversity, like the industry you were, or the type of experience you have from the area you were coming, the technological background. What did you study? Gender, right? And in some cases also regional or where you are located. Like, so we're gonna talk about this in one moment during the course. So those of you who have not taken the test, please do so we can give you back the scores and explain how these teams were built. So you can apply something similar using maybe other tests in your organization. Okay. So at one point, I don't know if Jurgita or Diana, Renata, if we already have the teams created, or do you need more time?
Yes, we
so
do.
One thing we will do now is to break out for 7 minutes. So you can introduce to each other, you can know your teammates, and also you can create a WhatsApp group because you're gonna need it for some of the things we will be doing, right? Or I don't know, Signal or whatever type of platform you would like to use. So is that okay? Before that, is there any question? No? No, so let's go and meet our teammates, like 7-8 minutes, and then we will be back. So guys, did you like your team members?
Yes, of course.
Hopefully, because then there's little, one time, just to tell you, I didn't know about everything, right? You cannot get all the data from a test or survey. And the thing that happens was that working, we created teams for a major workshop. And then we did not know that there were 2 people that used to be a couple, but broke up, I don't know, 6-7 months before on the same team. And that didn't show. So I was approached by the people who knew this story and told me, Carlos, you know what, we have a problem. What? And he told me this, he said, so please, you have to change them because they broke up in very bad terms. And then we realized why the faces on that team were like so weird, because why people is not talking. That was not smart. It was not good. So hopefully nothing like this happened today.
No, I didn't see my wife in the group. No, that's okay.
That's good, Mark. So guys, the 2 components for the learning experience that we use in this program, and one of those is something we call the knowledge keepers. And the knowledge keeping is, learning happening in many different ways, not only by listening or speaking, but also by acting together. So one of the things that we are going to do, you are 6 teams, so you don't need to do it. You can do it for one by once. It's great. Is to go and between one session and the other, create a summary, a synthesis of the most relevant aspects of the previous session. And your team will be beginning each class, 10 minutes, and you will present, right, the synthesis, the most relevant aspects of the previous session. All these 10 knowledge keeping sessions, text of slides, will be part of the class material for everyone to have. So by the end of the day, you will have all the content from the full class and the brief summary prepared for each one for each one of your teams. So you can, from session 2 to session 9, you can choose whatever you want. In session 10, as you might have guessed, I will do the knowledge keeper for the whole program. So I'm going to make a synthesis of the 10 sessions in a way that is more concise, allows you to have a summary of the summary, if you will. That's one. A second thing is that we're going to use a method we call S3. S3 stands for, this is a screen or search, screen, and select. It's an upgraded version of the method that a little bit we saw in some of you in our previous courses. And for this, one of the things we're going to use is to look at this. One of the things we have prepared here is a list of 16 emerging digital technologies. Some of you might have heard of number 1, number 4, 3, number 6, blockchain, IoT, right? 5G. But there are others: rural experience, internet of behavior, IOB, digital twins. You might have heard of that or not. Pervasive privacy, customer data platform. And the idea would be that first, with you and your team, choose one and make a presentation. If someone of your team already have been on the digital transformation class in the MBA, and you have chosen, let's say, artificial intelligence, please choose another one. So we cannot go over the same things that we have done. It's nothing about cheating, it's about learning, right? So we want to learn about different technologies. So the idea for here with this thing is we're going to have 2 presentations in each session. One at the beginning, 10 minutes. It's going to be the knowledge keepers. Second will be to use this approach, right? To in 15 minutes, choose one of these technologies and tell everyone what it is, how does it work, what's potential, why should we be worrying about, and any reference you might have. So by the end of the session as well, you will end up with a small deck of 6, 7, or if you want to do 2, 8 technologies, emerging technologies from the next 5 to 6, 7 years, and the knowledge of how to do this. So you can give the rest of these technologies for your team to screen. And during the course of the whole program, you might end up with a pretty good sense of what are the 16 emerging technologies that are coming out on the next years, and how this can affect our daily lives and our business. Is there any question? No question. Everything is super clear.
Yeah, this time, yes, because we've been through the process already.
Yeah, no, but at this time, yeah, but maybe some people don't. So, okay.
How do we choose which team chooses what?
You choose whatever you want. The only thing is that first come, first serve. So if you want, we can put this here, and at the end of class, you will have the slides, right? The reason why I don't give slides before class is because I have a lot of different questions and kind of puzzles. So I don't want people to have the answers to the puzzles before I give the puzzles. That's the only reason why. Any question? Well, if there is no, one thing we can do is, let's say that next class we won't have the tech reading. So you have until next class to send, I don't know, Diana, if they have to send selections, who they should be emailing them to? You, Jurgita?
Yeah, they receive all the readings and syllabus of the program in our Microsoft Teams as well. We have sent them through emails, and the main contact is Jurgita.
Perfect. Perfect. So if you can send it to Jurgita and to myself, I'm gonna put here my email. By the way, there's my email. You can, by the way, just so we are clear and secure and feel secure, is a research lab. It's a impact research lab, right? It's an academic thing. It's nothing has to do. We don't sell anything. I don't do consulting. So no worry about your data or anything. I'm like a dork, right? I try to do research with people. So that's the reason for that email account. Now, let's go gets down to business. In a nutshell, what we will see on this course is basically how and why, what person is how can we manage the innovation strategy, right? And how that can relate better with digital transformation in a way that allows you to get the best out of both. And the reason for that has to do with what do we understand with by innovation and how that can help us to boost whatever we're doing in digital transformation. Now, so today the topic is types, impact, and strategy. And the learning objectives for today are this one. We got trying to understand what is innovation, what is not. One. Second, realize what is the payback we can get from it. Third, identifying the different innovation leadership styles and why they are relevant, and the difference between what they are the most common and the most common and the most necessary, and understanding the relationship between digital transformation and innovation and why they are so well related. So beginning with the first one, I have a question for you. What do you think innovation is? How do you understand innovation? And if you want, you can write it on the chat or you can speak out loud. How many of you have had any experience on innovation projects? Okay, please, Oswald, how do you define innovation?
I think something. Yeah, also go.
Yeah, innovation is to do something differently, to do something better, to find a better way of doing the same process, like to cut the time of the process, to make it shorter, to make it faster, quicker, and easier. So it's basically like that. That's how I understand it.
For me, is also to create something new, right? Which is a bit disrupting, the way of doing the business, or I don't know, living, the way of living, the way of doing business, or something new, some new features or products, wherever.
Okay, so we're mixing two things. Who else? Find a niche that is not yet taken. Good.
If I would add, then I don't think that innovation is necessarily just inventing something or making new. I think it's first of all implementation, making something to work, which might be already invented by someone else, but introducing to the market and making it to work really.
Margus has a very nice way. Actually, that is that's a topic that has been under discussion for quite a long time, and there is moments in which that is true, and there is moments in which it is not. For instance, if I'm taking something that already has been invented in other industry, take it here, implement it in mine, and I am the first one in using it. Is that an innovation? Yes, because innovation is very, very little things about innovation has to do with creating new ideas. Ideas are already out there. Are basically the ideas are like ingredients in a pantry. You can use them and mix in different ways to create different dishes, right? But also there is a second part of it, which is, as Margus said, if I am the second or the third or the fourth one into implementing something for my industry, but that thing is new for my company, is that an innovation or not? And the reason why I'm saying this is not because some of you might be saying, doesn't matter. Well, it does matter from the perspective of how much you can demand from it. Let's go and move. For instance, we can understand innovation in 3 different ways. This is the trinity we were speaking about. First way is that you can understand that as a strategic intent, as a management philosophy. And in this perspective, we understand innovation as the discipline, check this, of setting, the typo there, goals, I'm missing L, goals that seem impossible and continuously refining a unique way for achieving those impossible goals. This is one. So a management philosophy, and you need to have it at your C-level. If you don't have it at your C-level, it's very hard that that happen at the second level, which is basically process. Check that this management philosophy is based on a continuous cycle of improvement from the strategic approach to innovation. And so innovation strategy basically has to come up with having the vision, legacy, and everything you want to achieve in a 10 to 20 years or objective, to generating your plan, implementation milestones. But then most people don't get that innovation strategy has to do with this, with identifying hidden barriers for execution. All of you know, next session, we're gonna talk about these 2 questions you answer along with the test. And if I move here to the other side, right, to identify ways of inhibiting those barriers, having or creating or hiring critical execution skills that you might not have in the organization, and build a continuous learning system. And why is that? Because as a process, and this is the second part, innovation is understood as a learning process. And that learning process is built or is enabled through a set of what we read here, structures, stages, methods, and tasks that when we use them in systematic ways, allows you to innovate in consistent and predictable manners. Second question for you guys. Out of 100 innovation projects, how many of them fail?
%90.
More or less.
A lot.
90%.
I think a lot.
90%, 95%. Now, that is when you compare across different organizations. But what do you think is the rate of failure on innovation when you compare within a same organization that already have an innovation process, mature innovation process, and an innovation strategy in place? How do you think that number changes?
To 70%.
Lower.
30%.
Lower. Corporate level.
10?
No, don't get greedy. Don't get greedy. No, that's too much. No, it's between 20 and 30, depending on the industry. And we're gonna talk about that and how you account for that. Now, the failure, right, has to do with this other type of way of understanding innovation, which is, result, but we're gonna talk about a little bit about that. So I just wanted to show you, these are the 30 most common different types of innovation process that are out there. Some of them, there are a few of them that are not being used now, right? Number 16 up there, Edison innovation process not being used, but is the father of all the others, experimentation and failing, right? 22, Simon's Science of Design. Herbert Simon, he was the one who gave birth to all this design thinking thingy and a lot of also the processes that you can find on that top, which has to do with software development process. So there's 30 different processes. In future sections, we're gonna talk about the different approaches and methods, and also about how we, with our team, we took all these processes, put them into a blender, and took the best out of it and created a meta process that we will be talking a little bit about during the next sessions. Now, third time to understand innovation is as a result. This is what, out of 10 times you ask people what innovation is, they will tell you something about this, but nothing about the process or the management philosophy. So as a result, we define as any non-trivial change or new and systemic solution that solves a problem or need or anomaly or whatever, and create paybacks that allows that allows them to make that solution financially, socially, and environmentally sustainable. So if you have a management philosophy, well-structured innovation process, your results out of 100 projects, you will get like 20 to 30 failure, 60 or 70 to 80 successes. And the secret out of this is that for innovation's sake, the source of innovation is not on ideas. The source of innovations are in problems or challenges we are willing to solve. And something that we already have discussed, some of you, but we're gonna drill down now in much better ways in this course. Is there any question until this point? Anything you would like to add or say? Argue, you don't agree with, you would like to fight? No? Good. So this is a book that became a picture of a book that became very common, that basically says, the 10 types of innovation. The author says there are many 10 types. And one of the things that we have found is that more often than not, those 10 types needs to be combined with other types in order to create what we define there as a dynamic and coordinated multi-dimensional socio-technical system. Meaning that as a result, an innovation is never a process or a product or a service by itself. When you go and you present or you do something and go with a new product or service, it's very easy to copy. When you combine and you innovate in the different dimensions in which you are trying to solve something, it's much harder to copy. And I don't know if you know this, but protection, in terms of protecting anything you do in your organization, is much more easy to protect an innovation by combining different dimensions of this and making it complex to understand outside than by trying to patent it. For instance, is there anyone here from the energy sector? So, Andrews, what is the average lifetime of an asset on a transmission grid or a electric power grid?
On the pipeline, gas transmission pipeline system is official 55 years, but really there is no lifetime described, and it can live up to 100 years probably.
So let's say you want to protect something, given that patents last 14 years. Patenting, that if you want to, let's say you invent a new thing, a new device that is going to be attached to one of these pipelines, and a patent will protect it by only 14 years. What would you do? Would you patent it? Because after the 14 years, right, everything you put there is common knowledge.
Okay. I don't know, but the pipeline itself, the pipe is, as I said, quite long time, but for compressor stations and other components, there is maybe 8 years, some 12 years, different shorter lifetimes that we have to change if it is feasible.
So that, for instance, two components in which we consider in our management philosophy. Some people goes into, okay, we have an invention, let's go and patent it. And as leaders, your perspective should be, hey guys, just wait a minute, because we might not want to patent something that's gonna outlast the time in which a patent is valid. Otherwise, whatever you do becomes open source and people can go and replicate it. Now, there's also different types of innovation, right? And innovation, they're not, as a result, they're not all created equal. And there are two components by which you want to understand innovation in better ways. One, at the top, if the core concept of something is reinforced, or overturned, if the concept is new. Second dimension is a vertical axis. which has to do with to what extent the linkages, relationship between concepts and components are unchanged or changed. So here we have, I'm going to move myself here, 4 types. And these types that talks about the degree of novelty are relevant because they have different levels of risk and they have different likely paybacks. Incremental innovation is what you see there. You have, for instance, the fan, ceiling fan, the first one, and one that you can buy now in most, I don't know, hardware stores, right? You see the same idea. That's incremental, not much change. Usually 70% of innovation budgets go to incremental innovation, but that 70%, usually they generate 10% of the payback, 10, 20. So a lot of people invest there, payback is not that much. Now, second is this one here. We call it architectural, in which the concept you see is the same, but what the teams do, they decompose something, like the Japanese have done this quite a while, Chinese are doing them. And by decomposing, you try to understand and figure out a new way to putting them together to give a new use and solve a problem. And that fan, that ceiling fan, the problem was I have to have one for every room in the house. This one is solving the problem of I can take my fan and move it around the house so I can buy just one, and it's cheaper. The good thing of architectural innovation is the following. You don't need to make huge investments on technology, one. For someone that is being attacked, the owner of that thing, it will look for him that you are copying them. But in essence, you will be creating a disruption. So architectural innovations tend to be disruptive innovations as well. We're going to define what a disruptive innovation is in a while. And usually, the return on investments of this type of innovation is pretty high because you don't need to spend lots and lots of money on R&D, but your payback might be of in the, I won't give you the answer now but paybacks will be very high because I have a question for you later on. Then we have these other two, modular, right? And radical. Modular is basically when one module of whatever part or component you are working on or whatever, for instance, Andrews might say, let's generate a new, I don't know, compressor or a new part of a compressor, you know, that is digital, but the rest of the compressor keeps the same. We take one module of our component, everything on the product keeps the same, like the Nikon digital camera, right? And we innovate just in that little part of it, not in the whole thing. In this case, it's kind of hard because you need to have a very highly skilled workforce and you need to invest a lot of money into that tiny piece on that module. For instance, the first digital sensor, the investment for that on Sony was pretty expensive, right? It took a while until digital photography took off. And then radical, and when everything is new, like Netflix, for instance. Any questions? So here, a lot of payback, a lot of investment. Up there, yeah, you know, not as much, but also a lot of investment. This is from my perspective, this is one of the best zones. If you are not a company who is doing a lot of innovation, this is the best place to start. Doing incremental and then moving to this one here. Any questions?
May I ask one question, Carlos?
Sure. Yes.
When you tell about incremental innovation, you tell that payback is quite low, but in our readings, we saw an example, for example, Microsoft, they have incremental innovation with newer and newer version of Windows, for example, and they have really good payback in long term. So is this an exception or?
No, what I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, is that let's say that you have two things, right? One is how much you invest on the different types of innovation. And second is from your return on innovation, from the return to your innovation budget, how much of that return comes from the different types. So you can get a lot of money from incremental innovations. That's, and I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that most organizations invest a lot of their money into incremental innovations, but from the overall payback of an innovation budget, most of the payback come from these ones. Because the payback from these ones, it's disproportionately higher than the payback from the other. And we're going to talk about that same thing, Gidrius, today, how these paybacks are allocated into different types of projects. Okay. Any other question?
Carlos, but this radical innovation has much higher risk of being successful or not.
Yes, sir. So, but what do we know about risk? The higher the risk,
more return, but not always.
Not always, true. But that's why they call it risk, right? But that's part of the game here. Now, this is for you to read afterwards. It's basically the same and explain. So it is there for you to read afterwards as a reminder of the discussion we have with these slides. Now, first, debugging rule. If you want to do this game and do it effectively, you will need to understand innovation as this trinity in 3 different ways and manage each one of them in a different way. Innovation strategy, you manage it in one way and one set of people. Projects are managed in different ways by another set of people. And teams, and results are managed also a different way. What do we do? What do I do? We already invented the thing. How do we manage, the life process? That is something totally different as well. Now, disruption is a totally different thing. I'm sure you have heard about disruptive innovation, right? Now, how do you understand disruptive innovation?
I thought I understand that Uber is a great example, that actually after the pre-reading material, I'm confused now. What is this disruption?
Because it's interesting, right? Because we think Uber is, but if you read the material, it said, Uber, it is not. And the good thing is that disruptive innovation is both a result and a process. So disruption has to do with the change in balance of power on a market. From that perspective, you say Uber should be, right? Because it created this balance of power. Now, but the thing is that it comes from unexpected sources, and from all the different sources there is, right? Well, now we are facing, or we are suffering from this one. Disruption as a very interesting way of approaching or let's say of happening, in which usually the ones who were innovators in the past are not innovators now. And you start to see things like this. Now, what is the difference between this? If you already have former students, please don't answer. Right? What is the difference between these two magazines in years? How many years happened between no one could, deal and catch a cell phone king until, Nokia was sold by parts to Microsoft?
20.
5 years.
5 years. This is what disruption can do.
10 years.
15.
Well, I only was 5. 5 years. From the moment in which Nokia became super, the dominator, until iPhone came and happened, it was 5 years. It doesn't take too much. And this is one of the things that are very, very relevant. Take this company. Who do you think this company is? This is Apple. This is a computer company who is going into the healthcare business, right? And also, we know these guys. They're looking at you. They want to go for your business, unless you're a construction company or an energy company so far, right? But if you're a bank, these guys are lending like $1 billion in lending to their own companies. That was like a couple of years ago. Now, the good thing about disruption is that it can be suffered or it can be provoked. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing this because I want to show you. I want to show you on a different way how this happened and how you can make it happen in a way that allows you to understand to what extent you could, which is something that could be done, to what extent you could make this thing happen in your industry. And even though we won't go in depth into innovation processes, how to make innovation, because that's not for you guys, that's for your teams in this course. At least you will have a sense of how to do it. So are you seeing this? Which is you try to catch and understand where your industry is here. And this is we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna go to a 5-7 minutes break before we can keep on. So this is a graph, basically from a few years back, that tells the likelihood of disruption by different sectors. Now, I'm going to tell you now how disruption happens, right? And why you're more or less likely to be in this sector. Take that sectors at the top, broadcast, media, advertising, IT, telecom, retail, are much more dependent on information. At the bottom are much more dependent on infrastructure, like physical thing. You have to build something, right? So there's a lot of barriers to entry. Not anyone can go, for instance, and start to compete with Andrews. But anyone can become like an advertising company if you know a little bit about advertisement. Now, how do disruption innovation happens? You have here two things: time on the x-axis and product performance on the y. And most people, the incumbent companies, they have been serving, right, what we call the high end of the market. We have the mainstream market and we have the low end of the market. The low end is all those who nobody wants because they pay less, or they demand little, or they don't know how to use a product. Now, usually the incumbent has been building their market through time, right? Getting product performance that is better and better and better, and reaching not only the mainstream market, but also the high end of the market. And this is where most companies want to be. This is the type of product and clients they basically tap into. Now, disruption happens here at the bottom. So someone goes and see that the incumbents, right, are tapping into the mainstream and the high end of the market, but they are not using or considering or serving some people because the people are poor or they don't have enough money. So the entrant, what they try to do is compete with you, but with that segment you don't like or you don't want. They are willing and able to go down them and learn from them in a way that allows them to, over time, increase the performance, right? But they play the following trick. You go and you see that there are new company serving the low end of your market, and basically you look down on them. So, these guys, okay, they don't know what they're doing first. The product is very low performance compared to us. Second, they're tapping one segment of the market that is not relevant for us. So you don't pay attention to it. And this is where the entrant is invisible to the incumbent. then it is made visible, but it's not perceived as a threat until it's too late. Because at one point, they become attacking your mainstream market, and then it's too late. They already have enough customers and enough knowledge of the market. For instance, let me tell you a story about a very, very low income place. In Peru, you know Peru, Machu Picchu in Latin America, there was something called there was a guerrilla group called the Lightning Path back in the 70s. So they were cutting a lot of different places. Not many people could go into a lot of different places. And they were cutting transportation there. So there was no Pepsi-Cola and there was no Coca-Cola for a lot of people, because Pepsi and Coke were like imperialistic beverages. So they wanted to cut everything. And there was a couple of indigenous brothers, people from, born there, and they create something called Inca Cola. They mix a lot of different things and they created their own cola. Long story short, Inca Cola became very pervasive in Peru. And then these guys said, let's make it international. So there was these two Indian brothers, or native Peruvians, they moved into Mexico, dominated with Pepsi Cola and Coke. Pepsi and Coke didn't give them a glimpse, a meter of space. So there was no transportation company that was willing to transport and put their Inca Cola into supermarkets or any type of restaurants or whatever. So the disruption came from the following part. These guys start to tap into unemployed people and say, oh, Joanna, you don't have your employment. Let's do something. Do you want to become a seller for Inca Cola? Yeah, but what do you have? What do I have to do? Do you have a bike? Oh, yeah, I do have a bike. So we will give you Inca Cola and you sell Inca Cola among your friends. So PepsiCo and Coke, there was like, oh, these guys are going to be dead in like 3, 2, 1. But they did that in such a way that people, street people became like, they use the Avon. You know Avon? People at Avon, yeah, they use the same approach, like the Avon approach. Nothing new, as there was no invention there. Like Mark was saying, the idea was already out there. So they took it, they applied to the cola business, and they reached in a couple of years 30% of the Mexican market by using a different approach, tapping the bottom of the pyramid. This is disruption innovation, and you don't have to be a genius to do it. You only have to know how to tap into the underserved segments of the market. So you can take one thing out of this class today is innovation needs to be treated in different ways. One. Second, make your teams to look for the most underserved segments of your market and try to profile them. Why is that we are not serving them? What are the reasons why we are not in there? And beware, because if you have a product that is commoditized, high cost and price, and you have an underserved market, you are prime one candidate for disruption. These are the 3 conditions that you need to disrupt a market: having a commodity, high cost or high price, and underserved segment. And if we can learn something from the Apple guys, is the best defense to disruption is to disrupt yourself. You need to become your own disruptor in such a way, in one way. So is there any question before we move into a break? No question? 5-minute break? Good. Okay, guys, I'm gonna put here a timer so we know we can stop the recording for a while.
100.
Okay, 100. Good. What else? Come on, guys. If you already have this, Please share. How much? 5x. Danius, good. 1,000, good. 75 compounded, good. Now we have a little bit of everything. 5x. You know, on average, Danius and Danius, on average is 4.4x. That's on average. Now let's see how this works. Most people will tell that, let's go with the common sense, innovation risk is pretty high, 95%. Data says that innovation risk is 30%, and that blue part there is complexity, meaning if this is more difficult than risky. Okay, now, this is a graph, I'm gonna move myself away from here, that is telling you the following, guys. First, here you have the percentage of return you get on your investment. So that's the thousands and whatever. The orange line are associated with the right hand axis, which is basically the percentage of your portfolio that is invested on projects that have, now we go here, poor performance, insufficient performance, sufficient, good, and exceptional from innovation terms at the organizational level. So what this is telling us that 20% of your budget has a return of 0, 20, 30, 40, 50% return. Then second is that 40% of corporate innovation budget have a return of, that ranges between 100 and 400%. Then we move another 20% of your innovation budget generates return of between 500 and 700%. And then you have these two 20s, right? Which got very exceptional returns. So when you were saying beforehand, I forgot who was, I think, that it is risky, right? Yeah, it is risky, but the payback is really, really yummy, right? That's on corporate innovation. Now, on venture capital is different. If you can see here, less than 100 is not 20, it's over 60, 65. So the rate of risk, the rate of failure on corporate venturing, in the corporate venture or venture-backed innovation is much, much higher. And the reason for this, what do you think is the reason that in this case, the rate of failure is higher? Why do you think that in venture capital-backed innovations, the rate of failure is higher?
They're making much more innovations.
They are taking more risk.
Well, one part of it good is that they're taking more risk, because usually these people is going into places in which very few people have gone before, right? But there is a second reason. Processes are weaker. Joanna, you're close to it. It's not only the processes, but the teams have less experience. So let's say we are a team at GE or at Siemens. We already have 20, 15, 10 years of innovation practice under our belt. So we know how to deal with uncertainty and risk. But many of the people who go into VCs, they don't know much. Sometimes they have a good idea, sometimes they have been working on a good project, but they have sometimes not the best process, but also they don't have the experience on dealing with different projects or maybe failing many, many different times. Now, this is a rule of thumb approach for understanding, regarding of how new your projects are, or how, and whether they're gonna be, or whether they are new for your organization, one hand, or second, whether the novelty for the market, whether the project might be or not an innovation. I'm gonna move here again, right? And the second is, what is the expected level of return you could get from them? If for your organization is rather the project is super new or incremental, but as you have there already exist in the market, more likely it's not going to be an innovation. It might be a new product development project, good, but your payback is not going to come into the hundreds, right? It's going to be a modest, a good project. Now, if you have, regardless of whether it's new for your organization or not, super new, right, or incremental, but if there is something similar or in the market, then it's arguable. You know, these are 3 stages, but if it's too similar, then it might not be, most likely not going to be. And the payback also is going to be low. What you want to be is here. You want to create something that, while might have some similarities, as more things that are new, that's similar. So then your payback, you are ensuring that the level of payback you're going to get is much higher. And that payback, right, is going to justify the amount of effort that you will put organizationally to make this thing work. Any questions, comments so far?
Carlos, I have a question. Here we concentrate on financial payback. Maybe there is another aspect or feature of the quality or something like that. Effectiveness, not efficiency.
And well, effectiveness also has to do with financial, right? We can sell more, but we're going to talk today about also the intangible things. You have at least different type of paybacks. That's right. Financial is one, but you can also have cultural payback. You have marketing purpose. You have knowledge. So, and these are things that we're going to be talking also a little bit today. So one thing you could do, team, is that try to list your projects and try to identify what they are. By do that, it will lead you to adjust your expectations about how much you can demand from them, financially, or in other terms, knowledge, you know, trademark, or whatever. Now, this is something to understand also, that you can combine different approaches. You can combine process improvement with product improvement. And then by doing that, you are thinking, you know, in complementary ways, in the same way that in this paper of Gary Pisano, they were saying you can combine 2 things, right? You can combine technical completeness with existing business model on the other side. And by combining these 2, you can also have different approaches to solving problems, to innovate. Now, imagine what happens when you combine business model, right? Process, product, service, channels to reach to new branding. When you start to combine different dimensions, if you remember those 10 dimensions, the 10 types of innovation, when you begin combining all of them, your effectiveness goes beyond just the financial aspects. You begin to create a stronghold from where it's going to be difficult from others to move you. So one thing also you can take out of this session is that innovation is much more difficult than risky. And one of the problems is that it's difficult because it requires you as leaders to think in multiple dimensions. We tend to focus in innovation as a result, product, service, not because there is a product or a service, but because it's easier for us, for our minds to understand this, right? But this is much more difficult than risky. And you can actually trigger an innovation revolution in your organization by using a simple few tricks that we're gonna talk. Now, we need to be able to identify what innovation is not. So continuous improvement or small changes, they might be innovation in certain aspects, but not very, most of the times they're not, right? Because people can copy. One of the few things of innovation is that in order for you to have it. You need to keep a certain level of monopoly on the use of what you have created for a certain period of time. If people can go and copy, and if it's similar and already existed, that's part of what we call operations management. We don't deal with it on innovation management. Second thing is that if you take a technology that exists elsewhere, you are the first one to bring it and apply it in Lithuania, but all your other competitors can do it as well. That is also not part of innovation. That is part of technology management. Technological strategy, technology management, they deal with this type of things. Getting technology that is being used out elsewhere, bringing it and putting it to use in our country. So also, when you do this listing of projects and try to identify as well how many of them are not innovation. And the questions are, is this new for the company? Good. Is this new for the market? No? Okay, so that's part of the other. Is it new for the market? Good. Yes? Okay, that's might be candidate. And if you don't know, try to look into these 10 dimensions and see, where is the new thing here? How can we leverage this in a way that allows us to take advantage of this? So if we go back to this, right, we have this blue line, remember? That blue line has a very special meaning because it has to do with the following, that we said that, innovation is more difficult than risky, and that it requires you, in order to make it happen, it requires you to become a better leader. Now, in terms of leadership, we have to talk about at least some types of leadership that I think we will discuss later on, but we want to put into your minds now. There are at least 7 types of leaders. Have you watched Billions? Have you watched this movie, Billions? No. Well, this guy is a character there. It's called Bobby Axelrod, and you can see by his stance, he's the guy that makes anything to win. He's very goal-oriented, manipulative. He has his motto, means makes right. He's very good at emergencies and selling opportunities, and it's called the opportunist. It's one style of leadership that is very common among companies. Then you have this guy, the diplomatic, right? He tends to avoid conflicts, wants to belong to the people wants to be loved also, obeys group norms, rarely rocks the boat, and is very good at supporting glue within an office and helps bring people together. Do you know someone like this? By the way, do you know someone like this also? No? Okay. Do you know someone like this? Now, we have another guy, the expert, or another gal. He rules by logic and expertise, technically very good, seeks rational efficiency, and is very good as an individual contributor. It's mainly the kind of leader that people goes to him or her when there is a problem, and he or she always has a solution. Do you know someone like this? Then we have another type, the achiever. And the achiever is someone that is very good at meeting strategic goals through teams, juggling, the managerial duties with market demands. So it's in and out, and it's very well suited for managerial roles and top management, and is very action and goal oriented. You know someone like her? More or less. Then we have this guy called the individualist. And Steve Jobs is like that. Very good example. He's very good at interweaving competing personal and company logics, create very unique structures to achieve goals and resolve gap between strategy and performance, and is very effective in ventures and consulting roles. Do you know someone like this person? Okay. Now, then we have the strategist, and this guy is a pretty good one. Generates organizational and personal transformation, exercise power of mutual inquiry, vigilance, and vulnerability, for both short, medium, and long term, is very effective as transformation leaders. Do you know someone like this? That is not this guy. Less heads are doing this. And finally, we have her or him, something of the like, the alchemist. People that generate social transformation. They go beyond just the organization, right? They're very good at leading large group transformation reforms. You know someone personally like this? Almost no head. And what I'm asking this is because of this, guys. This is how common they are. Check. This type of leadership are not as common as we might think. And the thing is that from innovation perspective, who do you think are the best for leading innovation? Please write it on the chat if you want, or speak out loud.
Who empower people and teams to innovate.
So we have individualist strategies, individualist development strategies. So the best ones are, one, the achiever, the individualist, the strategist, and the alchemist. The achiever, the individualist, the strategist, and the alchemist. Yeah. And they are less than 50% in frequency. We found more experts, diplomats, and opportunists than achievers, individualists, strategists, and alchemists. And part of the deal with this course is help you to move. If you recognize yourself on the top, 3, opportunist, diplomatic, expert, which might be good for daily business, try to come up with methods and tools that can transform you, help you to, at least on the innovation realm, behave like an achiever, strategist, or individualist. If you're able to do that, it will be much easier for you to lead your organization into the innovation-driven digital transformation. And that's why I asked this question here. Innovation is difficult. It's difficult because some leaders are not willing to change or to improve. So one question for you on this program is reflect on how willing you would be able to improve yourself, to make yourself better, right? One of the things we talk here at BMI is that at the end of the program, we hope you are the same you, but a little bit sharper. In that sharper aspect is where we want to put our effort, right? Any questions about this? You're awfully quiet, guys. I don't know if because I'm going too fast. You are too tired? No? Okay. Okay. No comments. Everything is super clear. Yes?
We are trying ourselves to prepare to be sharper after 1 month.
No worries. We're gonna do it. And Mark?
Yeah, just one thing. In our little team 2, actually, we shared already things, and I discovered there's another person that had already a training as well, and is changing as well, and has implemented some teams to transform digitally, or from the previous course, we've implemented things already in our companies, which is great. So there's 2 in the team already doing it. I think the question is not if we want to change, we have changed already, and we're implementing, and that's one of the reasons that we go, well, myself and obviously someone else is coming to this course just to get even sharper and really know what we try to achieve. And because we're teaching it ourselves and telling it ourselves and influencing teams there, we need to know much more.
Well, as a faculty, Mark, what you're saying, it's one of one of the things that make our hearts like grow bigger and smile.
Well, that's why I kept
few
quiet.
things. Sorry, okay, no, there are a few things that we like to hear more than you to take what you have learned and put it into action. These courses, mine, Joe's, have been designed so you can get tools and try to put them into action as soon as you can. So it's good. It's good to hear. Now, let's give you a glimpse of how difficult this is. And then, now the trick will be, I will try to overwhelm you, right? You will leave today's section with a sense of, man, what did I get into? And we will take the next 9 sessions to debug you and give you some tools to manage this. Now, I always ask this question to my students. So, how many variables can you manage at the same time? How many problems can you manage at the same time before making irreversible mistakes? Please writing on the chat. How many problems, keys and themes or topics you can have open at the same time before? Okay, so you have 6, 8, 5, 7, 3, 3, 5, up to 5, 4, right? So this is the amount of problems we can have. Men usually between 3 if we are stressed, 5, 6 if we are more relaxed. Women, couple of more. So one diversity is good, guys. Females, they can, be worrying about different things. I don't know if you are married and you're like, you say sometimes to your wife, how do you do that? Like, okay. So that's one topic we want to talk in a few sessions. Why am I asking this? It's because innovation happens, in very rapid way. So now, if you're in a rush, if you're like in the middle of a storm, how many problems can you manage at the same time? The same 5, 6, 7? Seven, 1, right? 3. Some people go up and some people go down, depending on the training. Now, why I'm asking is because, check this. Skills have improved, that's true. Now, this image is showing you also some of the things that happen. When you're doing innovation, you have to deal at 3 different levels. First, you have 5 or 6, right? When things go rocket, your capability of solving problems decrease. But check here now, in innovation, you have to deal at 3 levels, right? One is this one, creating the conditions so your development teams can achieve. That's the strategic level. Second is the project level, in which people have to create innovations, solve challenges in the most effective and efficient way. And finally, third, you have to work also at the people level. So you need to create a social context when your teams can excel and have the minimum hygienic conditions to outperform at very high level. The thing is, when you need to deal with this, you're dealing with something called complexity. There are way too many variables to deal with it. Check this graph. This is a study we did a while ago showing how many variables need to be managed at the same time to define innovation performance first. At the strategic level on top, 27. That is the role of the C-level. Top management needs to deal with the strategic level. So how many companies do you think give the responsibility of innovation strategy to one person? Most of them. And one person is not able to manage all the variables that need to be managed at the same time, because our limits for managing problems is 5, 6 to 8. So one change you can do right away is trying to find out how many people you would need to be responsible of your innovation strategy at the corporate level. If you have 27 variables, how many people do you think you're gonna need? This is simple math. There's no trick on this question. In some of the questions, I do have tricks, but in this one, there's no tricks. Check, for instance, if we have 27, we might find that, you know, in the worst case scenario, 6, 8. And we have to account for diversity. We will double click on this and try to figure out, you know, what are the variables that we need to take into account. Now, second, 5, 6, yeah, that's your writing on the chat, pretty much into the bullet point. Now, at the project level, we have many more variables. So the other thing we never do on innovation is trying to give the responsibility of a project to one person. Second, never staff an innovation project with less than 6 people, the core initial team, hopefully 8. Because diversity here is key for managing this. So when we say innovation is more difficult than risky, we're talking about this. Imagine yourself like GE, for instance. GE currently has 350 innovations projects running at the same time. So at the project level, you have 350 times, you know, teams and all these initiatives at different stages of development in different moments in time. So the level of complexity is super high. And given that it's too high, we find that in order to manage this, we need disciplined teams, much more than lone geniuses. You need a disciplined team at the corporate level, so you can manage your innovation strategy by a team of people that complement each other and then can manage the different dimensions at the same time. We will go into depth into those different dimensions. So don't worry, the objective now is just to show you, this is difficult, guys, but it can be achieved through something called enhanced managerial coordination. Enhanced managerial coordination. Coordination means we need a team, people working together, of managers. Enhanced is basically we need to be at our best. This is where some of the part in which innovation strategy and digital transformation meet, because some of these variables are pretty much the same for both. Mark.
Yeah, I'm just testing for the moment a system where I expand the team, say every 2 weeks. So we gather once a week, 3 hours to discuss, and I baptize them to the alpha team and the omega team. The alpha team is 4 to 5 people working on a specific object. And then the other week, we gather with the omega team, which is 9 people in different locations.
And how is it working so far?
I mean, at least 3 new ideas per session and at least 5 actions from that. Yeah. So it's growing.
Have you seen improvement in performance based on previous ways of working?
We're still in the beginning of the meta process, in the sense that we're still describing, but we keep discovering things, and it's fascinating how fast it goes and how the interactions are really helping forward. Yeah.
That's good to know. Now, innovation also happens as a process, like in this way. So you have this, spaghetti thingy of search. If things look much more like this, everything is clear, the likelihood of failure is high. So what do we know in innovation, and what I'm going to discuss later on, is that risk, uncertainty, ambiguity are part of the game. We might have one beginning on a project, but we have multiple ends depending how the project, how the team behaves and how they work. The secret here, right, is that in order to deal with this, we know that innovation process as a process is a risky environment. Also that we have uncertainty, and we have complexity. And the secret here is that in order to deal with them, we don't reduce risk, ambiguity, uncertainty, and complexity. Check. They behave, they're like, even though they're different, what we see is very similar. Risk, complexity, ambiguity, they look the same. They have the same effects, but we need to be able to manage in different ways. And the way in which we manage this is by training. You can train people to behave better. So you as leaders, you can do the training of people so they can behave better in this context. It's something we're gonna discuss later on the course. And the way in which we manage this, risk, ambiguity, uncertainty, and complexity, is in order to enable teams to enhance their threshold for dealing with frustration. They're dealing with in collaboration, synthesis, and communication in high levels of performance in a way that they are able to, increase the risk, ambiguity, and uncertainty within projects, but then at the same time can mitigate the impact of risk, ambiguity, and uncertainty on the organization. So they're doing, the development teams, not you, development teams are doing risky business, but they are equipped with the methods in order to mitigate the potential impact of this high risk, ambiguity, and uncertainty for the organization. So it's basically letting your kids play, but you know that their kids have been trained to do that, right? Let's say, for instance, my kid wants to go and say, oh, that I want to do rock climbing. I'll say, no way, guy. You haven't done any of it. But if you already have gone for 3 or 4, I don't know how many months or years of doing that, I would say, sure, go and do it, right? Because you know how to do it. You know how to deal and behave in that environment. So that leads us, sorry, beforehand, do you have any questions about this? For the last part of it. So here, the overall thing is innovation, you have risk, uncertainty, and you have complexity. Risk and uncertainty help us or generate that risky part of innovation. 10, 20, 30% of project will fail because of market risk, technological risk, political risk, I don't know, COVID kind of thing, unpredictable things. But 70% of projects will fail or might fail because of bad management. So the good thing is you can deal with difficulty. Difficulty is not arbitrary, it's not random. It depends absolutely on us. We can manage that, and there are tools and methods that allow you and your team to manage that part of it. If you're able to do that, your prospect for success will be much higher. And there are also methods for dealing with uncertainty and risk. We're going to talk about that on Thursday. Now, the relationship between innovation and digital transformation. And here, guys, question for you. What is the expected return on digital transformation initiatives? If you want to use the chat. Without us, okay, 30%. Someone else? 5, 15, good. But what is the risk of digital transformation initiatives? Check, these are data from the last years. There is something going on with digital transformation, which is we have a rate of failure that is similar to innovation, but the return associated with this is like, I don't know, a 10th. So this is something that is not going, there's a disconnect here. I think we need to solve that disconnect. And now in COVID times, that's become even more problematic. So I'm gonna give you some examples. 2 cases. Case number 1, back in the 90s at a group of small electric utilities, municipal electric utilities became providers of telecom service. I'm going to move myself from here, I'm sorry. And what happened was that as a result of this environment, this thing was happening. They were doing innovation, bunch of them. So, and some of them were doing digital transformation. And check of what happened here. The ones in blue are the ones that represent that those were only doing digital transformation projects. The ones in orange are the ones who, although they were doing innovation, they were doing the same digital transformation projects. But check the difference in return from one and the others. Andrews, you were asking what other type of effect, right? So this is something called the spillover effect of innovation capabilities. Even though you are not using your innovation, you are not doing innovation on the change of new SCADA systems, those companies who actually were having innovation initiatives had something special, what is called these spillovers, these intangible assets that allow them to be much more effective in some other areas like this one, just because they had some different methods and tools and assets in order to deal with uncertainty and new things. Now, this is another debugging rule and something you can learn, that when you are able to innovate in consistent and predictable manners, you create some sort of capabilities that boost your effectiveness in related areas. And digital transformation is a close cousin to innovation. And one of the things that why this happens is because there is something called intangible assets. Those intangible assets are the capabilities, organizational structure, processes, and factors that are necessary to create value. And digital transformation is a value creation way of or capability as well. So basically, what it was shown that a while ago, by the way, in 2003, that for every dollar on computer or digital or technological assets a company invests on, if that company invests 30 cents of dollar on organizational intangible assets, the market valuation of the company might increase 12-fold, up to 12-fold. Now, going into some of the most valued companies in the world nowadays, you can find that in blue, you have the enterprise value as per the balance sheet. In orange, you have the intangible valuation of a company. And that line shows the ratio between intangible and tangible, meaning you can more than double, or you can up to double the valuation of your company if you work on your intangibles. So going back to Andrew's question, sir, innovation leads you to financial results? Sure, but also it can lead you to these intangible assets. And these intangible assets are these ones. You can get your patents, trade secrets, whatever, good. You can get trademarks, perfect. But also you can have knowledge and capabilities that can be applied to other parts. You can have, cultural dynamics. You can have specific strategies, ways of performing, skills and capabilities of your team. You have a lot of different things that cannot be put into numbers. And that is part of what innovation is there for, right? So one of the byproducts of innovation-driven leadership is the creation of intangible assets. Oh yes, Gitautas, I'm sorry. I think we are passing 1 minute. I'm gonna be finishing in 2 or 3. I'm sorry for that. So I have an example, but I'm gonna keep the example for next session so nobody misses that. And one thing that we're going to talk on the next session is that not all digital transformation needs to be disruptive, but innovation-driven digital transformation has disruptive potential. Is one of the things why we are here as a group. So I'm sorry for extending myself a little bit, guys.
No props.
Question. What do you think? What goes into your mind? What's going on with your brains so far? What is the sensation you have after this first session?
Yeah, the way I see it right now, well, in my company where I work, we are transforming it quite a lot in the last year or year and a half. And I was a leader of all those transformations. I was implementing new business software and other stuffs. Now we're implementing Power BI as well. So all that kind of stuff, I see a huge potential in that. But in some other projects that needs to be implemented, I'm not participating in the meetings anymore. And now, because it feels like I don't have time for it. And now I say I need to find the time. I think I need to participate more because it's a really complex process, and it may go, well, it might fail if there won't be a proper guy who's coordinating all the meetings and stuff. So I think it's so important for me to participate in practically in every meeting. Well, that's what these are my thoughts out of this meeting.
Thanks, you also. You know what? If you think that it might be relevant for some of you, we can move some of the content or advance some of the things so you can have more wisdom to make decisions and not wait until the end. But thanks for sharing that. Anyone else? Someone else? Do you feel your brain is swelling because it was too much thing in such a little time?
I wouldn't say so.
No? Good. One final question I always ask in order to fine-tune what's coming on Thursday. If you have to rank from 1 to 10, when 1 is I did not learn anything, and 10 was, oh, this was, eye-opening. It's like best learning experience, which I don't think it's going to be, but anyway. From 1 to 10, 1 is I didn't learn anything, 10 is was amazing. Who is on the 1? On the 2, on the 3, on the 4, on the 5, 6, 7, 8. I see a lot of 8s there. 9. Good. 10. Good. So thanks for that, because that feedback, that number feedback allows me to see or to want where we can go. If you have just the last minute, please send to Jurgita and myself an email with, already have your team, but with which technology would you like? You say first come, first serve. And second, not for next session, we're going to begin the Knowledge Keeper next week. And so then we will assign the teams in a way that doesn't need, you don't have to present knowledge keeping and technology the same week. Okay. So I'm super happy for having you here, guys. I don't know if those of you who will be going for the fall program, you would like us, because maybe some of you already have things to do. I will talk about the project first thing on the next session. Is that okay? So you don't miss that. Very nice meeting you. Next session is going to be different. We're going to have much more breakout and working teams, especially with reading Elon Musk. Read it. I'm going to talk about The Martian, as some of you said. So I'll see you on Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a nice rest of the day.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.